Hello, everybody. Jonathan Rayo here with SimplifiedGuitar.com, and welcome to episode 3 of the How to Play Q&A, where I answer your questions and song suggestions. Now, today we have a song suggestion. I'm going to be covering two questions. The first is a song suggestion from Jim Thompson, who wants to know how to play the song Some Days Are Diamonds by John Denver. And then we have another question from Gene Zackerman, which is any suggestions on how I can work to not flatten out my ring and pinky fingers on the B and E strings. I don't get the best sound out of those two strings on the G and the C-add9 chords. So he's referring to when you're playing in the G chord family, you know, the G, C-add9 chord, and the E minor 7 and the D over F sharp as well. You've got these two fingers down here on the 3rd fret of the B and E string. Which can be a problem for some people because those fingers are normally your weakest ones. So I'm going to be talking about that because it goes nicely with the song that we're going to be doing, because that song is in G. So first, let's do the song, Some Days Are Diamonds. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. Now this, I just went to Google, typed in Some Days Are Diamonds by John Denver, and went to the first link that popped up. And I just grabbed that text and I just pasted it here in Word. So I haven't made any adjustments to it. This is exactly what you would find on Google, okay? Now, there are a few things I would change, and I'll get to that in a second. Basically, down here in the chorus, this B minor, this little progression is not correct, in my opinion. I'm going to be playing E minor, then I'm going to be going to the A minor 7, and then to the D. So I would make that change. So I would change this this B minor to E minor. The C I'm going to change to A minor 7, and then the D can stay the same. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to be playing, when I play it right now, I'm going to be playing the variations that I use from the G chord family, which you can find in my ebook. This is the cheat sheet. And you can get this cheat sheet from my ebook, Hobby Guitar, on my website, which is free. So, but this cheat sheet's in there. So you can see in the G chord family, I use these variations. So if I were to pull up the song again, this song is in the key of G. So whenever I see a D, like right here, I'm going to be playing this variation of the D, which is D over F sharp, instead of just the regular D. And same goes with E minor. I'm going to be playing the E minor 7 right here instead of just the regular E minor. And then I'll be playing C-add9 instead of a regular C. So anyway, just keep that in mind as I'm playing and you're watching my hand. If you don't see, you know, if you're like, wait a minute, that said C, what are you playing? I'm playing the variations that are in that chord family cheat sheet, okay? So just keep that in mind as I'm playing. And for the strum pattern, I'm going to be using the folk strum pattern, which is a 4-beat strum pattern. Let me pull it up for you here. So this is the folk pattern right here, which is a 4-beat strum pattern, and we're going to have an four down strums, and then we're going to have an up strum added after beat 3 and 4, right? And then we're going to be adding emphasis on beats 2 and 4. I mean, I'm just going to be strumming harder for those. So if I were to just play it for you, just that strum pattern by itself, you would have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. So you can see I'm strumming harder on beats 2 and 4, right? I'm putting more emphasis on those. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. And by the way, that's a great way to practice a strum pattern. If you're not comfortable with it yet, just mute your strings and focus just on the strum pattern by itself before you try to throw chords in there, and then you're trying to think about two things at once. So just focus on one thing at a time when you're just learning it, and then you can add them together. So mute your strings when you're practicing the strum pattern. And again, it's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. And for that first beat, I'm just plucking one string, and which is the first note of the chord, right? So if I'm playing a G, the first note of that chord is that low E string. Okay, so beat 1, I'm just plucking that string by itself. Okay, and if I'm playing the C-add9, the first note is the A string, which is the C note. Okay, the low E string is not part of the C-add9. Okay, and but for every other one, let's see, the G, D over F sharp, E minor 7, all of those, the low E string is your first note. All right, it's just going to be that C-add9. Your A minor 7 is going to have the A string as your first note, and the B minor 7, which is not, I don't think we play that chord in this song, but just to keep that in mind for other songs, that low E string's not part of that either. Okay, so anyway, let's move on to the song. So I'll go ahead and play it for you right now, and then we'll talk about it after. When you ask how I've been here without you, I like to say I've been fine, and I do. But we both know the truth is hard to come by. And if I told the truth, that's not quite true. Some days are diamonds, some days are stones. Sometimes the hard times will leave me alone. Sometimes the cold wind blows a chill in my bones. Some days are diamonds, some days are stones. And then we'll go back to the next verse, which is the same as verse 1. Now also down here, so verse 2 is the same as verse 1. Then we go back to the chorus, and then there's a key change in the original song where they jump up to another key. Now, I would just recommend, if you're just playing this for fun, for yourself or for other people, you're not trying to play along to a track or anything, don't do a key change. I just don't recommend doing that. Just play it. Then just play it again. Just all they're doing is playing the chorus a third time, and they're just changing the key. So you could just play the chorus again in the same key, and it's going to prevent you from making a mistake, because it's very hard to jump to a new key and then sing it, again in another key. So I would just recommend just keeping it all in the key of G, making your life a lot easier. Okay. Now another thing, if we go back to the verse, you'll notice they have this little D right here, and I didn't play it. This D is kind of like just a little quick walk up to the C. So again, let's go back. Let me pull up my hand here. So if I were to play that, if you wanted to add that in there, it's basically, so if I go back to that verse, let me just play it for you again. When you ask how I've been here without you, I like to say, so we just you saw me throw that D in there. It's real quick. It's not even a whole measure long. It's only half a measure, right? And same thing for the next line. I like to say I've been fine, and I do. But we both know the truth, right? So you just throwing that D in there is very, very quick. Now, again, you don't have to do that. You could just get rid of the D and just go straight to the C. But that's what that D there is for. So you'll also notice this A7, I'm playing A minor 7 right here, which is part of the G chord family. You could play a regular A7. Let me go back to my hand so you can see. So regular, this is a traditional A, right? A7 is like this without your third finger. So if I were to play that last line with the traditional chords, let's say this would be the traditional way to play E minor, the A7, and then D, like that. If you wanted to play it the traditional way, it would be, if I told you the truth, That's not quite true. Right? As opposed to with the variations, I'll play it that way for you so you can hear the difference. If I told you the truth, it's not quite true. Okay, so that's really up to you as to how you want to play it with those variations or the traditional way. To me, there's not too much of a difference in the terms of the sound, but the variations are a lot easier to play and a lot easier to go from one to the other, right? So, but I'll leave that up to you as to how you want to play it. Now, you'll also notice that the chords here are not going to be located where they belong, you know, in terms of where they show up during the lyrics of the song. And I don't know why this happens, but nobody, when you pull up chord charts online, they never put the chords where they belong on top of the word where they occur. And I don't know why this has not become a thing, you know, for popular chord charts, but people just don't do that. They don't go through the time to put the chords in the right spot. So just keep that in mind when you're playing. Just rewind this video and play it with me to get used to where the chords go, right? Because so for instance, like when you ask, the G doesn't really start playing until here on ask, right? How I've been, the D shows up on been. Here without you, the E minor kind of shows up there. And then I like to say, the D shows up on say. I've been fine, the C shows up on fine. And then the G shows up on do, right? So you have when I ask, right? That's where the first beat of the G shows up. When you ask how I've been, we got the D on been. Here without you, without you is the E minor. I like to say, oh, let's see. Oh, sorry. That D is a walk up, right? So that D is going to be I like to say I've been fine and I do. That G is still going to show up on do, right? So if you want to throw that D in there, I like to say, C is going to show up on say, I've been fine and I do, and then the G shows up on do, right? But we both, and so the C shows up on both. Know the truth is hard to come by. So the G shows up on come by. And if I told, and so the E minor shows up on told, the truth, A minor shows up on truth, that's not quite true, and D shows up on true, right? And same thing for down here in the chorus, some days are diamonds, the G shows up on diamonds. Some days, and then you got the C, let's see. Some days are diamonds, some days are stones. So the C shows up in the middle while there's no words. Some days are stones, and then you got the G on stones, right? So this, I'm just kind of giving you an idea of what I do when I'm rewriting these chord charts. I just kind of play it and then sing it out loud, and then I start moving stuff around, because to me, so much easier to follow when the chords actually line up with where they're supposed to be when you're playing. So that's what I do with my chord charts that you find on my website. But for these episodes, the How to Play Q&A, I'm trying to keep these concise and quick and easy, so I don't actually provide the chord charts for these so that I can get to more questions. But hopefully you can take a snapshot of your screen, or you can just write these down real quick and just get an idea of how I do it, and maybe you could do it yourself when you find them online. All right, now to get to Gene's question about how to not flatten out your ring and pinky finger. For that, let me pull up my screen here. So for the especially for that G, the C, E minor 7, and the D over F sharp, this third and fourth finger don't move at all, right? They're staying exactly in the same place on that third fret of the B and E string. So, and even to this day, this sometimes, if I'm playing a long set, and I've picked out songs that are all in G. And so for 30 minutes straight, these two fingers are not moving at all. That is a killer, right? Even to this day, because these two fingers are your weakest ones, right, of your hand. And so that's just a lot to put on those fingers. But a good way to make it easier for you, I want to go over a couple things. The first thing you could do, and I mentioned this to Gene in the comments, is you can get this little nifty tool here, which is a hand exerciser, right? And basically what it does is you put your hands there, your fingers on these knobs, and you just press down on them, right? And it's just a way to work out your fingers and the muscles in your fingers. This one in particular is $15. You can just Google search hand exerciser for the guitar or something like that, and you can find something similar if you want to exercise your fingers, because that's one thing that'll help to get these fingers stronger so that they can press down longer. The other thing is going to be to press down on the sweet spot of the fret. So if we're looking at this hand right here, the sweet spot of the fret is not the direct center of the fret. It's going to be 3/4 of the way up, closer to the metal piece, right? So right here, you can get a cleaner sound with less pressure than if you were to press down here. You can hear I'm pressing with the same pressure. Now, if I press harder, I can get a clean sound, right? But with the same amount of pressure, I can get a cleaner sound higher up on the fretboard. So keep that in mind, when you're playing these chords. Now, it's going to be harder because you got two fingers on the same fret, right? So it's going to be harder to get them both in the sweet spot. But a thing you can do is if you turn your hand this way, you can get both fingers closer to that sweet spot than if you were to come in like this, right? You can hear my B string is kind of rattling. But if I turn it, I can get it closer to the sweet spot of the fret there, okay? So that's a little trick you can do. Turn that hand, and you want to come in perpendicular to the fret, right? You want to come in as much as you can straight down on the fretboard. You don't want to come in like this at an angle, pressing with the pad of your finger. You want to press with the tips of your finger, come in perpendicular to the neck, right? And that'll help out a lot as well. And then beyond that, what you could do is just practice. You need to practice these chords in transition. So one of the things that I teach my students to practice is just plucking one string at a time. Don't practice. If you're having trouble with these chords, take some time to just practice them by themselves without practicing them in a song, right? So you just take them one at a time. You start with the G and go through one string at a time, right? And let's say you're having problems down there and you're getting that chattering. Stay on that string and move that finger around until it's clean, and then move to the next one, and then go back. And move your hand around, move your wrist around, change how you're coming in on the strings. Move those hands around until you get that clean sound, right? When you get that clean sound, that'll give you a feel for, okay, this is where my hand needs to be. This is the best position I can get it at to get that clean sound, right? Now, you might only be able to do this for a short amount of time before your hands start hurting, but that's a great little practice, just going through one string at a time so you can pinpoint the problem areas, right, and just focus on that problem area, figure out what's wrong with it, and fix it before you move on to another string, right? So those are some great practices that you can do, Gene, to get your hand, especially those two fingers, sounding better for the G chord family. Well, thanks for the great questions and song suggestions, Jim and Gene. Appreciate that. If anybody else out there has any questions or song suggestions, you can head on over to simplifiedguitar.com/ask, and you can submit your questions or song suggestions there. I will do my best to get to all of them. I probably won't, though. I'll just let you know up front that I probably won't be able to get to everybody's questions and song suggestions, but I will try my best to get to as many as I can. So you guys have a great week. Happy guitaring, and I will talk to you guys later.